I said, look, I'm really worried. And then he's like, who are you? And what did you do with Naama? I mean, where did you put yourself? Because you're speaking like a panic mechanism. Like he was actually using these words. He's like, where? And I'm like, shit, I gave in.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Conversations with Sharika. My name is Sharika Swaby. I am your host. I am also called the Mind Reset Strategist. Today I have a lady who wears quite a number of hats. She is a psychotherapist. She is a creative director. But the thing that I think we're going to be paying a lot of the attention to today is the fact that she's a shaman and a healer. So she's going to tell us all about that. Please welcome to the show, Naama Kostiner. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Kostiner. It's okay. I don't mind being Kostiner.
Okay, what's the correct pronunciation?
Kostiner. We actually come from the same place, so it's okay.
Oh, okay. Cool. Kostiner.
It means the same.
Oh, okay. All right. It's a pleasure to have you here with me today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Please invite your friends. I think this is going to be a good one. All right. So you wear a number of hats, and one of that is a shamanic healer. Can you tell, for persons who don't know what that is, maybe they've heard the term and they're not quite sure what exactly it means. Can you tell us what that is?
Well, shamanism is basically traditional tribal healing that was based in many places around the world where you can see indigenous communities. So I'm sure you've got those in Africa as well, all sorts of, spiritual traditional healing techniques done by tribes. And I was trained by people in the Amazon and in some tribes in North America that were teaching me about, growing natural medicine in the fields and basically kind of opening my mind to consciousness and to different types of healing. So I guess this is kind of like a very vast and global way to describe a shaman. But I think it kind of goes back to the idea that everything's already been created. So you don't look at yourself such as, let's say, as some sort of an entity or a god that's kind of like outside of society or has like a different position, but more like when you're connected and actually integrated with everything else. So it actually teaches you how to go inward in order to heal, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I was kind of on that trail, but I think that, I keep telling people that whenever you're on a specific trail in your life, you always end up meeting people that will connect you to like different angles of, your interests. So let's say you're a football player, then wherever you go, you're going to meet football players. And if you're interested in spirit, consciousness, expansion, then you're going to be kind of introduced to that during the course of your life. It's just going to be part of, the stations that you go through.
That makes sense. Before we continue, let's backtrack a little. Tell us a little bit about who Naama is, where are you from, where did you grow up, what was your childhood like?
Oh, wow, that's a good one. A big one, actually. Do you have like a few hours for that to talk about my childhood? The truth is, I'm originally from Austria, from Vienna, but I've been moving around and basically traveling and living in different countries most of my life. So between the Mediterranean, Tel Aviv, London, Berlin, Vienna, different places in the United States. And then as I grew up, it was Spain and South America, Mexico. So the list goes on. I guess it started because of my late father's career. And then I always tell people that once you get used to that way of life and you get bitten by that bug, by the travel bug, then you understand, the that the world is actually smaller, and you get a different type of perspective about your options. So at a point I had no choice, and then when I had a choice, I just embraced it. So that's for countries really. Sorry?
Did you enjoy that as a child, going around and being so many places?
That's a good one. Not always, to be honest. No. I think it's about, like, if you're going to do something like that, I guess no one can really prepare you mentally how it's going to be. And I think for me, it was a bit hectic sometimes because we'd move to a different city or a different country, and I'd have like 5 days to adjust to a completely different environment, school, language. And it would be sometimes, challenging, let's say. So there were some challenges in it. But I really liked a saying by Prem Rawat Maharaji that I encountered like in my 20s. He said that, once you're young, you look at the differences. And then when you grow older, you start looking at the similarities. So, I suppose in Lagos or in Mumbai, you can walk around the street and you'll see people jams, walking around and basically jamming each other. And then you go to New York City and you see traffic jams, and they're all feeling the same because they're all angry and, pissed off and, get out of the road. And so you start seeing the similarities between cultures and people, and you just kind of ask yourself, where is my bubble? Like, where does my heart belong? And you start building around that, what's right for you and what's the right path and way of life for you.
Right. So I'm curious, what led you to shamanism?
Oh, that I wouldn't know how to answer that. I think like I said, it caught me, it met me. It didn't really give me a choice in a way, but I think I was just very open. I think that children are very open consciously to things. And I think it's not about when did I find out that, I can do that. It's mostly about when did I find out that other children were not as open, that they stopped using their imagination as much as I did. And luckily I had a grandmother that was a different type of healer. But she saw it. So, she taught me how to read cards when I was 8 and, taught me about all sorts of things about the universe. So I wasn't really, like, there was always, for me, growing up, there was always a type of connectivity somewhere. And then, as I grew up and moved and, swinging around wherever I was, I would pick up more and more things until it kind of integrated. And I'm always still learning. But it's mostly about being conscious and present.
Okay, that makes sense. So shamanism found its way to you. And you've always known that you've always felt connected to something bigger than yourself. But at what point did you truly embrace that?
Well, I had a lot of ups and downs with it. I've encountered like teachers that have, I've had all sorts of interesting encounters as I grew up, with Native American people. And it took me a while to actually take it in because, at some point I wanted just to be a teenager and to be left alone. Like, I didn't want to not be connected, but I just didn't want the responsibility of what this meant or a way or practice. I just wanted to be free, and I had a lot of conflict thinking about how this could be integrated or what this makes me. But I can tell you that all through, like, I was 17 and I needed to make extra money. So after school, I would do, readings for people. So it kind of, it kind of became, people laugh at me years ago. I started working for the fashion industry. That's another thing. And, and in the beginning, I wasn't, I was in my 20s and I was still unknown or not being paid. So I would just say, okay, I'm going to take my cards to coffee shops and just let's see what happens, kind of living this way. And the fact knowing someone's going to buy a reading and, I'm going to have, enough for today and some extra cash. And it's just, like I said, it just kind of grows. But I think when I was 20, I took my first serious step, and I actually went all the way through to the Amazon and then moved to Mexico and took on more studies. And yeah.
Okay. You mentioned the responsibility. What's that like?
Well, I think today I see it completely differently because I think that, once you are kind of connected and present, things come to you naturally, and effortlessly. That's how they should be coming. But I guess when you're learning something and you feel like you may be excluded, or it may be putting you like in a marginal position in society because, you're weird, or you're doing something, unusual, then you start thinking a lot about that. And, maybe the ritualistic things that I do, maybe they're too weird, and maybe I just want to be like everybody else and like a teenager and, listen to music and, blow all that stuff in the air. But I think it's mostly when I say, committed, I like that word very much, in a sense that, once you're committed to yourself, once you're committed to a path, then I'm going to change the word, because now I word it differently. I call it devotion, which is a completely different thing than a commitment. It's not homework, but it's not homework. It's being devoted to an idea, to yourself, to existence. So yeah, that's different.
That's beautiful. And how does that help you to see other people, to help other people, to bring some sense of healing to other people?
Well, first of all, I'm a clinician. I went and I got my degrees in, clinical psychotherapy, and went through all of that. But one of the main reasons was that, I suppose one of my influences, a good friend of mine that passed years ago, bless her soul, she was much older than I was, but she was like a very influential character in my life, because we met when I was 16 and she was almost 60. And, she had one of those centers where they would do readings, and I was so young, and she said, here you can actually do readings and get extra cash. And I'm like, would you employ me? I'm literally a kid. She says, yeah, but when you open your mouth, come on, you can do this. So she gave me a lot of confidence. But one thing she did tell me was that she said, you should go and study something, because when you have books behind you, well, at least then when we didn't have the internet, or we weren't influencers. So she says, when you have books behind you, yes. People would listen to you more, you would have more impact. Besides, you can expand your knowledge, and I'm a person that likes to learn.
Right.
So I guess it's not just one thing, or not just shamanism, or not just, it's the whole thing, my whole path integrated, that, it's all the hats, like you said, that I'm wearing that would help me attend to a client, or sometimes, assist a friend. But it's not that once we are connected, we have all the answers. It's not that we don't struggle sometimes, wake up in a shitty mood in the morning, excuse me, or, or deal with your own package. And sometimes it's ironic, because, when I was younger, I did think that this was a solution, that I shouldn't be going through anything, because this is supposed to solve everything, but it's not true. You still have to deal with yourself. And I think that's like, yeah, you still have to face yourself in there.
I agree 100%. How I look at it is, if you're not having any problems, if you've got it perfect, then you'll probably offend.
Yeah, you could be Jesus for all we know.
Exactly. So you probably
most of us are not saints.
Yeah. When we met, you were telling a story of an accident that you had.
Yeah.
Can you?
Do you remember that?
I'll never forget it. So I would love if you could share it with those who are watching and will watch later.
Okay, so, well, I don't talk about it a lot, but in this context, I think it could be an interesting point. But my other hat, or my third hat, is that I come from the arts. It was always like my personal therapy. We each have our niche. So for me, it was dancing for many years, and sketching, painting, photography. Like, I'd be into a lot of arts. And being a dancer, you use your body a lot, you use your feet, it's your confidence, it's who you are, you put yourself on stage, it teaches you a lot about facing things, and it was a strength for me. It's connected to the accident, because, you asked about moving, and one of the things about moving is that I played piano, and I couldn't carry a piano when I was moving. So for me, finding another skill that I could do. It was really my salvation. And then I had like a severe car accident, like almost 6 years ago, my God. And I can't believe I'm saying that. And it changed my life completely because I had to stop dancing. First of all, it broke my spine completely, my chest, parts of my legs, my arms, my neck, and treatment and, dealing with all of this put me in a state of having another autoimmune disease. And, we can go on and on through it, but mainly I remember that we spoke about the fact that when they said that I was limited, that I would need the way they worded it was like to get myself some help, or to be helped with a wheelchair, rest in a chair sometimes, because that's what people in my position do. One of the things that I couldn't accept is that, like I said, that's not part of my reality. And, in my brain, I'm still dancing, I'm still kind of, so, one of the things that you do get from all those hats, I think, is the perception, and we're going to talk about manifestation, that you're actually the god of your world, that you actually have a lot of influence on your reality, that things are not necessarily, that things are not external with, disregarding yourself. They don't just happen, we manifest them. So I don't think I consciously went around to manifest a car accident, but I think I had some harsh thoughts about life at the time. And I think that this was perhaps reflecting some of my depression, or reflecting some other things that were going on, because it was a very weird ordeal. But mainly, when I was left in a chair, and, it's one thing is still dealing with the pain until this day. Another thing is kind of thinking that, okay, this is going to determine my life. And they didn't give me much chance. They said I would need practice and at least, kind of like 2 years until I could like try to walk. Mm-hmm. But I made it my job to say no. And in my mind, I would be running each night in my meditation. So I was on my feet after 3 months, wow. Not 2 years. And there's a cane, but there's no wheelchair. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you broke a lot of essential parts, your neck, your spine. Not everybody recover from spinal injury. So
that's true. That's true. But I think you probably know Dr. Joe Dispenza. I mean, he's a doctor and a physiotherapist, and he broke his spine, like I think even in a very, very crucial way. And he's walking and lecturing and, teaching people to heal themselves. And so, if I'll tell you something about that, about potential, I think it's really weird because, when you lose hair, your DNA naturally knows how to grow a hair back. Or let's say if you're even missing part of your liver, your metabolism and your DNA knows how to grow a liver back. So I think it's weird that it doesn't know how to grow teeth back or your arm back. But I believe, I don't know why one thing specifically can happen and the other one can't. But, one of the things that I was reading years ago that made me laugh is that there is this microscopic worm called planaria. Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be, really stupid because it's got like, I don't know, like 2 cells like bacteria or something. It's a very primitive creature. Mm-hmm. But I think as primitive as it is, look what it's able to do, because you cut this worm in half, you get 2 worms. You cut her body in half, you can have 2 tails or 2 heads. Like it's bizarre, it's sci-fi completely. and it's very hard to kill that thing because, she grows.
Yeah.
So this is actually kind of leading us also to what we spoke about talking today, is it our own brain that limits us, that stands in our way of what would we believe is true or false, or what should be or what shouldn't be, or all those principles that are actually in our way of growing. Sometimes it's good to be a planaria where you have no boundaries and, I could have 2 backs and, tail, why not, And I think in a way what Joe Dispenza did, or is kind of like saying, okay, I know my DNA and I know that my DNA knows how to fix it. So even if it's not perfect, because I still have a lot of barriers, especially when we suffer from pain, both emotionally or physically, then we kind of think, this hurts me, or I have a story around this, I've got trauma around this. So it's harder to fix it completely, but don't you see people healing themselves from cancer every day, from terminal cancer, or from, I mean, your body has a lot of information that we're actually not accessing most of the time because we use such a tiny bit of our brain. So it's about expansion, if you'd like.
Yeah. And just to let you know, I had the very same thought. Why can't we grow back an arm? I was thinking the same thing.
I always wanted a tail. Honestly, I always wanted to have a tail.
Oh my goodness. All right. So we are here to talk about the manifestation glitch. Why is it that so many of us struggle to manifest this life that we consciously dream of, we consciously want, we know that we want it, we write it down, we put up vision boards, we work towards it, and yet some of us struggle to manifest that. Why is that? Or what is that?
Well, that's a very big question and a very good one, because I think the truth is that we don't manifest only when we want to manifest. What we need to understand is that our thoughts create all the time. So you're manifesting all the time. It's just physics, you know, it's not something that can stop. And physics prove it in a way that they've searched and saw that every thought you have has actually a wavelength that can be measured with hertz, and also your emotions. So they've been all sorts of, you know, tests with dark matter and the way your brain affects things. But even, you know, one of Yamamoto's famous experiments in I think it was 2000, when, bless him, he also passed away, but he was a Japanese scientist and also an artist that basically took you know, droplets of water, and he put them in test tubes, all identical, and then he froze them. The only thing was, so they had the same frequency and they had the same weight and everything, but he made groups of people come in and think about something or express an emotion when they're staring at the, you know, at the can. So some words were like love, and some words were like, I hate you. And he made them think of that. And the interesting thing is that the shape, like the frequency, stayed the same, but the shape of one droplet of water changed completely, unrecognizably. And he tried, you know, to see how water is affected by music. So imagine this is one droplet of water and your body is 75% liquid, if not more. The universe is 75% liquid, at least Earth is. So if you think about it, you know, in a very sort of non-mystical way, very abstract, it's all electricity. So it has to blend and it has to affect at some point. So let's say I have old programming in my brain saying, you know, we're all programmed, you know, I'm not going to go into the whole brain biochemistry. That's for another day. We can do that. But basically, your brain learns by memory and loves recording, and literally creates neural pathways in the brain each time the brain learns something new that you repeat. So it's a good thing on one hand, so you don't have to teach yourself how to walk again or how to speak or how to drive. You do it automatically. Right. The thing is that the brain also gets used to thoughts, and it likes to burn them in there, especially in the left side of your brain, deeply, so you repeat the same thoughts all the time. So it's a funny thing, because we have between 70,000 to 80,000 thoughts per day, and on a good day we're aware of about 2,000. But at the same time, the good news, if you can call it that, is that they're repetitive thoughts. So if you're used to waking up in the morning with anguish or depressed, this is the same way you'll probably wake up tomorrow. So it's the same, it's the same shit, excuse my language. I'm a bit like that sometimes, but it is what it is. So, you know, once you try to manifest and you set your mind into something, it doesn't mean that this old program isn't still working. So they kind of like work simultaneously. Being connected is mostly about being a bit more aware of what's in that container and making what you're choosing more dominant than the other program. So it's kind of like not changing what you want, it's changing who you are. into someone who is already living in a version of receiving that, because you need to convince your own mind, in a sense, to actually carry out a different vibration. So some things are very easy. Say you want to manifest a cup of coffee and you don't really have a story with coffee, right? You know, unless coffee did something to you, you can think about coffee and then someone's just going to bring you a cup of coffee, or you're just going to run into your favorite coffee shop when you weren't even planning to go there that day, or, you know, it would be easy. Or you'll think about someone and they'll call you the next day because you don't have a story around there. But once you have resistance, then there's one side that's kind of saying, oh, I got this, you know, and the other side saying, no, you don't, you know. You have to be realistic. I love that word, realistic. I fall into that trap too, by the way. But on my good days, I do not. Or in my essence, I would say mostly I do not.
Right.
So, yeah. But that's like the beginning factor of it, is that we stand in our own way because we can't be like the planaria. For the planaria, there is no resistance thinking that it can grow a new tail, a new head, I mean, a new leg. What's the problem, you know? But for us, it's because we don't believe it. And, you know, many people use affirmations and they're like, I've been affirming this all the time. Why isn't it happening? It's because you're still in a state where this doesn't exist. You're still trying to get it, which means you're coming out of a place of lack. Every time you ask for it, you're actually enhancing the fact that you don't have it. So it's not the same thing. If I can give you one last example, let's say the Olympics, you know, or people who are training, you know, for sports. A lot of the training now that people do has to do with brainwaves. They also use brainwaves in meditations, but in their meditation, they're already running and breaking a record. Now, when the brain can believe that, then the body can follow. It's not the other way around. Right. So first you need to convince yourself here that what you want is possible, and then things start happening. That's the short version.
Yeah. So for those of us who don't have access to brainwave training, say like the professionals would, I mean, if you've grown up in poverty, for example, that's going to be a difficult one to overcome, because you've heard it your whole life, you've seen it your whole life, and you've experienced it your whole life. So that's like a part of your identity now. So how do you begin to read out or to grasp more for a higher frequency or a better thought? How do you get there from there?
Well, this is a challenge, but we all have to face ourselves, right? So we all carry a story. And it's very unfortunate when it comes to poverty, because poverty sometimes is also like a disease of society. Because let's say, you know, let's talk about this for a moment, because it's a very good example. Because, you know, currency, basically money, doesn't really exist. You know, we used to trade donkeys for a bag of rice, let's say. And then we decided to make coins that are just pieces of metal and said that they have worth. And then we created paper. And then we said, no, but now we have Bitcoin, or, I don't know, credit cards or whatever. And now we say even that's not worth, because real estate is worth more. The fact is that the people who got rich, they get rich no matter what, because it's not the money itself. Money is as neutral as broccoli, but it's a state of abundance. Like, it's something that I can even say, you know, about myself as of lately, that I think I understand money, although I don't understand numbers. You know, I used to understand like the currency of abundance, and because like a few traumas that, you know, like you said, have been going on lately, you know, I've lost some of my confidence and I gave in to the story. So that's what happens, because just because you were born into circumstances, it's almost like a generational story, you know, and you don't have to give in to your story. So the universe isn't limited. Look at some of the world's grandest millionaires. They didn't come from money, or some of them came from very misfortunate circumstances. So, right. And all this idea that you need to work hard, that's not a necessity as well. You can go on I don't know, reality TV and be a celebrity for nothing and make a lot of money. I mean, it's just, you know, the thing that you carry for years, and sometimes the principles. But have you heard of Mother Teresa from Calcutta? Mm-hmm. she passed, and she won a Nobel Prize for peace, and she helped a lot of people, like sick people and poor people, and all those names, all those stigmatic names, but she was
Right.
doing a wonderful job. But one thing, if you've ever heard her speak, she would not identify with victim mindset. So she would be invited into riots all the time, or rallies or protests, and she would say no. All the time she would say no, and people said, but why? This is your cause. We should fight the government. We should do this. We should do that. She says, because we're coming out of lack. I'm not going to any protest, but if you invite me for a walk for peace, count me in. That's like a totally different frequency. And, people would judge her for that, for saying that she didn't represent the people right, because she wasn't, joining the fight. And in the end, the funny thing is that she got more money for those people and more facilities for those people than all of those protesters. I mean, I'm not saying anything against protesting. I think that sometimes, it's very important, but it's where you're coming from. Are you coming from a victim mindset, or are you thinking, I'm already bringing the change one way or another? I am the change. I'm not my circumstances do not dictate, what my body or soul or mind could do. Right. And that's like, it's choosing the right story, I think. And then, training with that, because your mind is going to defer and tell you it's not true. And look at your neighbor, and look at your neighborhood, and look at how many people are successful. Your brain is going to try to get you stuck in that old story, because the brain loves habits. Even if they're bad, even if you're smoking, it's going to tell you, oh, you're going to have withdrawal. Don't stop smoking. I'm used to it,
Yeah. And I think that's a protective mechanism, because it's safe. It's a safe area.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
it's definitely like protecting the core of, who you are and what you know. And I think people are really afraid what's going to happen to their identity. That's one I've come across. I don't know if you guys relate to it, or then people in the recording, but it's they're afraid that, if I do this, who am I going to be? I'm the person that has these principles. This is who I am. And, sometimes you really have to ask yourself, really, is this serving me?
Yeah.
Because those principles, they came in somewhere from my story, from trauma. Who knows, maybe some of them are good, but some of them you've just been dragging around because you're used to it and you're defending it like it actually means something, and it actually doesn't mean anything. It means you're stuck. Yeah. And if you're stuck, you're going to get stuck results.
Agreed. How does one, so the glitch is we are thinking one thing unconsciously, so we are producing a different kind of energy there that is opposite to what we consciously want. Hello, identity architect. Now, hey Heather. So we want one thing, but our energy is saying something else. Right? Yeah, it's conflicting. So how do we turn one up and turn one down?
Okay, so I'm going to try to give you some tips around here. And the first thing I would say is that you need to practice. It's kind of like this person training for the Olympics, right? So they train mentally and they train physically. It doesn't necessarily need to be hard work. Like the idea itself is quite simple. I think it could be hard and challenging because we're facing ourselves, we're facing our own doubts, and sometimes to get over yourself is ridiculous, is hard.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this, in first person because, it's not like I'm Superman, some days are challenging. But I guess it's about not necessarily having the doubt in who you are and your self-concept. So what does that mean? Let's say you wake up in the morning, right? And your gender, for example, you're a man or a woman, or you're a father, or you're a mother, or I don't know, something very basic. So you don't question that just because you're having a bad day, right? You a mother. So how about knowing you're a king or knowing you're a queen? And not underlining this kind of inside knowing, regardless of what's happening on the outside. So it's almost like think about how a person, like, you know, you're a woman, for example, a very beautiful one, Sharika. So you don't, bless you. So you don't question that. Even when you're having a bad day, it's not like, oh, maybe I'm going to be like the planaria and turn into something else. I don't know. But no,
Right.
you know, even on a bad day, that's a given. And that's something that's given. So it's almost like if you can think that your state of prosperity is a given, and that's the first tip. So you're telling yourself, whatever helps, you can tell yourself, you know, I know that no matter what, things always work out for me in the end. So I'm not going to worry about that. And it's almost like you are going to have shitty days because you are training your brain, and your brain is going to hold up a front, sometimes more, sometimes less, and it's going to make you doubt, and you're going to make people that are going to make you doubt, and circumstances that are going to make you doubt. And it's almost like being a witness towards reality instead of participating in everything you see, like participating in the drama. Like I could give you a personal example. Usually people, you know, they call me Mr. Cool because no matter what, you know, I generally have a positive attitude. Yeah, I can get a bit mad, but I cool off, you know, and I'm generally kind of like vital no matter what. But sometimes, you know, it bites you. And I've had a few nights when it was biting me, and, you know, I couldn't sleep. I was turning around and I was worried. And, you know, and when you do sleep, you have those anxiety, almost nightmares. And my cat, it was very funny because, you know, animals, they pick up on signals. So she couldn't sleep either. So each time I felt like I was going to sleep, she just came and woke me up. She's like, hey, wake up, you know, I want to play now, or I want to. And it was just, I felt like panic, like everything was stressful. So first thing this morning, I was talking to one of my best friends, and I said, look, I'm really worried. And then he's like, who are you? And what did you do with Naama? I mean, where did you put yourself? Because you're speaking like a panic mechanism. Like he was actually using these words. He's like, where? I'm like, shit, I gave in. Gave in to my damn brain. So I can't tell you. I mean, it happens to all of us. And then you can feel like really stupid about yourself for a few minutes because you know the material. So what the hell's going on?
Right.
You know, why? But even here, you have to be okay. You have to let yourself breathe and then tell yourself, okay, so now I'm going to be a witness, and I'm going to observe what happens, knowing that I'm going to get what I want because I'm already there.
Right.
So that, I would say, is step number one. Step number two that's connected to that is don't tamper with the evidence. What do I mean by that? When you plant a seed in the ground, then you give it some water and some sun, and you don't meddle with it. You don't start opening the soil and going, hey, what's up? You know, where are you? Why aren't you coming out? Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. And this is what we tend to do. You know, the first thing goes wrong and you're like, it's not working. or, you know, we have setbacks. It's taking too long, so it's not working. How do you know it's not working?
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, on a good day, we're aware of 2,000 thoughts, and you're definitely not aware of everything that goes on in the universe, right? So how do you know it's not working? I mean, we only know a plant is working when we see the leaves sprouting out, but there was so much going on in the soil. So how do you know it's not working?
Yeah.
And, you know, do you actually, or when a woman's pregnant, what are you going to do? I mean, we take scans, but imagine we'll give her surgery every day to see what's up with the baby, or, you know, why isn't it, like, is it happening? You know,
I know that one.
I was just going to leave it there. So yeah, you know, it's like, no, I mean, the way we talk about people, even myself, I laugh about it sometimes with the clients, like, why didn't he text me back? So I'm thinking, okay, imagine that person was a car. Can you imagine, like, driving a lovely car and they go like, yeah, I'm driving a Maserati and it's red and it's cool, great. Now, why didn't that car text you? Why is that car sitting in your parking lot not texting you? And it's almost like when it comes to a car, it's easier to imagine because we're thinking, oh yeah, you know, I'm going to get that car, or I'm imagining driving my car. And sometimes when it comes to people, and guess what, everything involves people. we're always in an exchange. So we're always thinking, even money, someone's going to pay me, someone's going to give me. And we always attach so much drama to that. Like, why are they not contacting me, giving me the new job, giving me the new salary, or other people are responsible for my life? And actually, no. So I think when I say tempering with the evidence, it's like not opening the soil, being in this trust, and that's sometimes a bit challenging. So every time you open up the soil, what you're actually doing is, again, creating a reality of lack, again, affirming that you don't have what you want.
You slow down the process.
Yeah, it doesn't mean don't take action, but it's very different when we take, and that, by the way, is number 3, it's very different when we take inspired action steps. If you compare that to, to what we usually do, is that we act out of panic, like me last night. We do things because we're afraid. If I don't do this, I'm not going to secure that. And, and usually what happens is that you don't get out of the loop, because when you're making your decisions from a place of fear, you're going to get more of that. Even if you get what you want, it's not going to be stable, and then you're going to find yourself in a similar loop soon. So it's kind of like, almost like crossing those barriers. And I think on some areas it's easier, and then on other areas where you have a story, it's more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I love those tips. I love those tips. I have a question. How do you determine whether or not your next step is out of inspiration or anxiety and fear? How do you know the difference?
Well, I think when you react out of fear, you usually feel it in your body. That's the first thing. When you kind of breathe in, you'll see that you have this tense moment or this bothering thought, And I'm not saying sometimes we do things because we've signed to do them, but I can still control the way I react to them. I can still decide if I'm afraid, like common, let's say a common theme, which is money. You ask a person where they get their income from, and they're going to list you all the places that they get their income from. I get it from, my family, or I get it from a job, or I got it from, I don't know, a present, or I got it from, they're actually going to tell you, and all the answers are wrong, because universe is source, which means, regardless of your work, regardless of your job, someone can sponsor an idea of yours tomorrow and give you money, or you never know. I mean, we can't mix, for example, careers and money. A career is something you do because you feel inspired, because let's say it gives you an inspirational challenge that doesn't like really kill your mind, but you're enjoying your job, you feel like you're growing, and it could be one of your sources of income. But you don't need to link it so hard that you're actually limiting yourself receiving income from other places. Why not? So I think it's the same with, I think what we need to do is like follow our thoughts, kind of the same way you put yourself on a diet, to put yourself on a thinking diet, and kind of like observe where your thoughts go most of the time. So it's not like, becoming the thought police, but trying to make your dominant thoughts during the day a bit more oriented with, the kind of energy that you actually want to vibrate into.
Something you said, I think is worth repeating, and it's where you said, don't connect your career to, don't make your career the only place you can get money from. So you have this one thing that you do, and you hang on to it for dear life, and you're scared of losing it because you feel like it's your one source of income. I think a lot of us do that. I think I used to do that. And it creates this fear and this tension, and definitely a negative energy when we are in.
And what kind of what helped you kind of get out of that?
Well, it wasn't any one thing. It was a number of things. It was getting to know myself. It was feeling like I'm more than my job that I was doing. And now I am in a more open space where I'm opening several windows where money can come from. So I don't have to be an accountant and this is the one thing that I can do that money can come from. I can do a number of things. So it was a process. It wasn't any one thing. It was also healing too. That healing is very, very important in all of this. I came to understand. So that played a significant role as well.
I love that. I love that. And, you know, and it's like you said, it kind of, there are some things that manifest very, very fast, you know, that we get result like in an instant. And some things have like a jet lag. They take a bit longer, but they're going to be processes anyway. I mean, you could win the lottery and get a lot of money one day, but then, you know, sometimes it's going to take you a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it really, in a sense, matters, because when I said we try to micromanage when that's going to happen. And I think that's the only thing that you don't really have control of.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, well, you can affirm that things happen fast to me and things unfold fast, and it does affect, because that's also energy. But still, the exact timing is something that we can, I don't know, I guess sometimes create, and sometimes it's more kind of vast if you don't want to limit it. But if you know that you're going to be abundant anyway, you know, with whatever you want, why would you like to limit that? Would you like to think about, what am I going to do with this abundance once I have it, and kind of live through it? Or do you want to kind of dwell on how come it's not here yet, it's not texting me, doesn't love me, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, and people do that all through relationships. You know, they're sometimes, you know, very busy also, and you know, let's say the concept of getting something specific without actually seeing what they're putting out, and the lack, and, you know, and actually going to what feels nice and feels right, which is basically, when we do that, things open up for us in our lives, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so here goes my 3 magic questions that I ask all my guests. Question 1, what impact would you like to make on the world?
Oh, wow. I would like to bring in creativity as a daily form of thought for people.
Yeah.
That for me would be a blessing, because I think that when we create and when we kind of, you know, I would like to endorse people to use their imagination, because I think that when we do that, we can, I mean, look at a child. If you tell a child, what are you doing? Oh, I'm playing fireman. He's fireman now. Like, he has no doubts about what do I need to do to become one. Like, he has no limits.
Yeah.
And I think we say that children have a very, you know, vivid imagination, but actually adults have more, because we've seen more. We know more than kids. We're just more stupid than kids, if I may say, in some areas. I love kids. I think they're brilliant, you know, when they imagine, like, I go with it completely. I've seen so many, you know, wonderful things, and they believe that, you know, they can do whatever they want, and, you know, they're the best at what they do in that moment. And yeah, I think that would be like my major impact, to heal people with creativity, you know, to tap into that, to let life be okay because of creativity also. Cause
yeah, I love that. I love that. Maybe we can collab sometime. Oh, by the way, I'm in Jamaica, actually, not Africa.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. All right. So question number 2. Were you, by some magical chance, given the opportunity to attend your own funeral sometime in the distant future, what would you like to hear people say about you?
Oh my God, I had a friend that was online here. I don't know if he's still here, but he's probably laughing, because he's going to love that question. I have this thing that I usually say, who cares? That's like my real answer, but I hope I made some people laugh, and I hope that I managed to, you know, touch some hearts and things, you know. That's like the main thing that I'd like to do. There are a lot of things that I'd like to do, you know, for the environment, and, you know, that I care a lot about Mother Earth, but I think it's less about what people would say about me when I'm dead.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, it's our ego thing. It's cute, but I think it's mostly like how I go. And if I go in peace, knowing that I've kind of completed, and that's really what I want. Can I tell you a joke about that? It's actually real.
Sure, go ahead.
My grandma and like my grandma's sister, they were very, very feisty. And, you know, they were very sharp with their tongue. If you think I am, I'm nothing compared to that. And my grandma's sister, I was very close to her, and she passed when she was almost 98. And she used to have this thing and talk about it for years, and like very seriously and angrily. And she says, "When I die, I don't want you to write my age on the tombstone." I'm like, "Why?" And she says, "Because a lady should never tell her age." And she was so. I think this is one of the reasons why I see the soul as a joy. Like, she was so serious about it. So when she passed, I had this thing because they were going to put the tombstone on her grave, and I think they made a mistake. Like, they already engraved the date, so you can already see, like, you know, it's custom. You have to put the date on. So I said, "What am I going to do now? She's going to come back and hunt me and kill me." And kick me. So I actually ended up writing on her tombstone that I love her forever and she's ageless anyway. And yeah, so that's kind of like my joke about about death, because I don't see it as a separate cycle from life. Anyway, I just think it's a different side to the contract when we lose the planaria body and we go into consciousness.
Right.
So yeah, that's me.
But she's ageless anyway. That means it.
She's ageless, and I love her forever. So if I'm ageless, she's ageless. You know.
Yeah.
The love goes on.
I love that. That's awesome. And then my final question for you is, well, maybe I have another one, but what do you do on a daily basis to maintain your desired state of being?
Okay, let's not take last night as an example, because then I'll definitely fail.
Oh my God! On your good days.
I laugh a lot, as you can see. I laugh at myself. Like, I understand that the 3D reality is somewhat, sometimes, as serious as it may be and painful, it's still sometimes ridiculously hilarious. So I laugh at myself a lot, but I would tell you, you know, I have, you know, routines of journaling and meditating and morning rituals, which I do on a good day. And I think they're very helpful because it's my mindset for the day. It's not like just, you know, my tasks. It's how I'm going to be thinking.
Yeah.
So I actually plan. I took that from Roosevelt, by the way. I read a memoir that they said that when he was president of the United States, he would go into a room for 25 minutes every morning, and you wouldn't be able to disturb him. Even unless something exploded outside, he would shut himself in the room, and he would journal every day. And, you know, under no means should he be disturbed. And they said that, you know, he used to maintain this very high level of vitality and activity, and he would do sports, and he would just, you know, be this character. So instead of like using the morning to kind of as some of us do, coffee, or, you know, it's mostly, for me, it's a ritualistic thing. But most of all, it's the way I go to sleep. And I think that's very important, because on normal days, especially when I'm in pain and I'd wake up and, you know, there'd be sleeping disorders due to the injuries, it's very important. If I can't sleep, I meditate. If I can't sleep, I'm in that space in my head almost always. It's become almost like an automatic thing. So it keeps me less tired during the day because I let my mind rest. And when the mind rests, the body rests. But I try to go to sleep in that state. You know, Einstein spoke about this, Neville Goddard spoke about this, that when you go to sleep in that desired state, like, let's say when we talk about the desired state, is not how am I going to reach my goal, because then you're meddling and, you know, interfering, but mostly like, I'm already there, and how does that feel? Because even when I don't believe something, I can still imagine. We're very imaginative creatures. If you go to bed imagining that, the subconscious is tremendously strong. And then there are more ways of impressing that subconscious when you sleep. You're less in control, so your brain doesn't get in the way so much, and then there's more reason to wake up in the morning differently, and hence, you know, this whole story.
Yeah. Yeah, I have some similar routines myself, so I definitely get that part. It's interesting because last night you were a different person, as your friend said. Yeah.
Today, half day, I was a different person.
And then this morning I had an experience where I could feel that I was right between being on the positive and on the negative. It felt like I was being pulled in both directions, right? And I kind of like took the morning off. I was almost late for the show. I kind of took the morning off. So I went and I laid in bed and I just breathed through it and I closed my eyes and focused on the desired state that I'd like to be in. So, and then I got up, went to the bathroom, looked in the mirror, smiled at myself, and ta-da, I'm here. But yeah.
Well, that's just brilliant. That's just, it's exactly what you should do, because life is dynamic. It's going to throw like cannonballs at you, even if you're Queen Elizabeth, but she's not going to forget that she's Queen Elizabeth if that happens.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So I have a kind of a controversial question, my final question. So I wouldn't say controversial, but people might call it woo-woo. So I have, since I've been in this space, I've come across a number of things. Some of them, a lot of it was hard for me to accept initially because I come from a Christian background, right? So a lot of this thing is out there for Christians. So some of the practices that I've come across for shamans is that they can, they like have specific chants that they do that takes them to a higher consciousness or into the spiritual realm, and that allows them to access different levels of information about people. How true is that?
Well, I would say, I'm not going to go into the whole thing of religion, and obviously that's very objective, but I think that people misinterpret religion or the true meaning behind, what it means to be God, which for me, God is just, the unified field of, of course, it's all of us.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy because, as you said, when it comes to Christianity, sometimes when you put an entity that's external, or in almost all of the religions, they tell you that there's an external entity that you pray to.
Yeah.
And I think it's a misinterpretation, because any mystique, any like true priest of any religion will tell you that that's not true. Even in the book of Genesis, it says that God created man in his shadow, and which means that you carry the energy of creation within you. So what are you praying to? When you're praying, what you're doing is, it depends how you pray. If you're in lack and you're saying, I don't have anything, please save me, please save me, please save me, it's very different than when you say, get me connected, help me get connected, help me get, my potential to who I truly am, and support me, in this, because I know that, we can co-create.
Right.
Because, there's this field that we all interact with. And I think, just like religion, is the same with shamanism, because I've seen people that were, pure of hearts and understood spirit as abstracted as it could be, meaning that they don't, like, they'll tell you the chants are a technique, but use whatever works for you. It's that kind of thing. And if they use, let's say, if they program their mind to work with a chant and then get into a different sort of spiritual realm, it's just because that they trained their mind to do that. You can train your mind in any way that suits you. Basically, it's just a technique that works, but it's about being connected. And I think that also in shamanism, depending on which levels, if someone tells you that an entity is outside of you, that you're not part of the whole, that's, I think, missing the whole point. Like when I saw healers in the Amazon, I mostly saw people that were telling you that, once you get the wisdom of trees, it's because, you share a field. So there is no reason why you cannot understand the wisdom of trees and why it cannot understand your wisdom. And, you know, you can share it because you're a part of an ecosystem. So I think by its root, shamanism is very different than, you know, it shouldn't be like that. But we know that organized religion, you know, has its own sort of ways. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not kind of being rude to anyone's perspective. That's not my intention. But we know that sometimes, you know, religion can take the focus away from its essence, from its very abstract essence. And
Right.
once you get into rules and what you can do and what you can't do, and you know, all of this and that, I'm not going into it, but sometimes you have to be very careful not to lose the whole purpose of faith, because faith is mostly faith in your godly self. And, you know, even you're Christian, even if you go into scripture and you read some of the text that Jesus was using, he told people to use their own power and go and heal and go and do good. So if you didn't have that, you know, invested in you, why would you be able to do that? There's a lot of psychology in there. You know, he goes and heals a man that is handicapped or crippled, but it's about the word. He tells him, you know, now believe that you are healed. Now believe that you're working. So it's co-creation that works when the other man gives complete faith in a process and understands that if I tell my mind without a doubt that I am healed, then I shall be healed. And, you know, healed is relative, you know? It doesn't mean that a person necessarily is perfect or the next day he wouldn't feel a bit weird, but, you know, but we don't have to interfere or figure out all of these processes, if that makes sense. I hope this answers the question.
It does answer the question, and unfortunately, I have a ton more questions because what you just said made me want to ask more questions, but we don't have all day. I'm going to make that my last question, and I'm going to say thank you so much for coming on here.
Oh, you're most
today.
welcome.
I enjoyed our chat. It was very light, even though it's a serious topic. But you made it fun, so I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome, and thank you too for coming here, and thank you guys for joining us. I truly appreciate your support. And if you are one of Naama's fans, please give me a follow. I am here every Thursday, and I'm always talking to someone amazing like her, and they're always sharing insights, their stories, and their techniques, or their methods, or their expertise on how we can all get ahead. It's all for edification. So if you're not following me yet, I'd love your support. And if you love Naama, I'm sure you will. She's amazing. Give her a follow as well if you're one.
Thank you. And if anybody wants also, I'm giving out free discovery calls at the moment. So if anyone wants to chat with me and see if we can work together or do something, feel free to ping me.
Awesome.
And follow.
And guys, if you haven't, where did my book go? Okay. So if you haven't gotten your book, I author a book, and usually at the end of my show, I share it with others so that they can pick up a copy if they'd like. It's called An Introduction to Freedom.
It's upside down, honey.
Oh, you're seeing it upside down? I'm not sure why.
Yeah. I guess it's the mirror effect, but yeah, we can see your name on it.
Yeah, it's called An Introduction to Freedom. It's on Amazon, and it's designed to help you get out of the doubtful state to a state where you can start to feel a part of the whole, so to speak. Anyways, see you guys next Thursday. Thank you once again for being here with me, and thank you, Naama. This was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, dear. Bye, Sharika. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a beautiful Thursday, everyone. Goodbye.